And Daniel, I know you haven't had a chance to really strike through these numbers, but the numbers almost seem immaterial. There's growth. We know that. And it's coming from the traditional places we would expect to see them. When you think about where the stock can do, what the stock can do next, and whether it can actually catch up with some of its peers in the big cap tech space, what do you want to see out of it?
Good to see you, as always. I think what we're going to focus on is continued execution of the product cycles. We obviously have iPhone 17 coming in September. The key here is really, can this company continue to reinvent itself? Recall the iPod over 2 decades ago. Clearly, the iPhone remains critical to the business, and that franchise, in my view, remains durable. I think the services business remains healthy. And so when you pull all of this together, you have a company that's been successfully empowering others to innovate on top of its platform. I think you'll see more and more of that with Apple Intelligence over the next several months and into next year. So we like the stock. I do think it can catch up to some of the other names. We remain long-term owners, and I think with a 12 to 18-month horizon, the shares are attractive.
There's been a lot of criticism on Apple over the last year or two about the idea of what its AI strategy is. Why aren't we seeing the same headlines out of Apple that we see out of Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and the other cohorts? Does that concern you?
Each of these companies has a different business model. And so if we look at Meta, which had strong results, their advertising business remains healthy, and they're continuing to push ahead with AI, and generative AI remains a lot earlier for them. With the cloud companies, we saw that with Microsoft Azure, AWS results this evening, and of course, Google last week. The cloud businesses are seeing very strong demand, and so that's helping those companies. With Apple, it's about evolving the user experience on the device. And the other key element for the Apple story is this focus on security, on a trusted private user experience. And so Apple, in my view, is going to look to put that front and center with the Apple Intelligence experience. And the key is for them to get it right. The history of this company is that they may not always be the first to market, but if they come up with a differentiated experience, that, in my view, is what will drive growth as I think about the year ahead.
There's been a lot of talk about the tenure of Tim Cook. I think we're coming up, I believe, next month on something like his 14th anniversary as CEO of this company. He's lost a lot of top managers over the last year. Now we're hearing a lot of reports of him losing a lot of top engineers as well. Is there any chatter amongst the investor class about maybe talking about some sort of succession plan away from Tim Cook?
If we look at the history of the company, they've been successfully transitioning executives. You have a CFO, Kevin Parekh, who succeeded Luca Maestri. Kevin is also a strong executive. Luca is still with the company as one example. And so you have Jeff Williams, who's going to be retiring. He will stay with the company a little bit longer. And so I look at some of these transitions as a very natural part of the evolution of the leadership structure. I think Tim Cook has been an exceptional leader of the company. And part of what he has done so well is empowering other executives and empowering the developers. And so that has contributed to the magic, if you like, of Apple. When I think about AI talent, the industry, Silicon Valley, there's always going to be poaching of researchers and critical talent from one company to the next. I don't expect that to change in the near or the medium term. I think Apple has a lot of talent. I think they'll continue to add talent. Yeah. And if you think about the story, it's not just about internal talent, it's about partnering with others and bringing the experience to users.
What's going on with regards to their international exposure? I just want to read off the China revenue for the most recent quarter. It did beat expectations, about $15.4 billion, Dan. That's about a 4% increase and slightly above what the street was looking for. And I think a lot of people were expecting maybe even something worse because of all of the back and forth and tit for tat between the U.S. government and the Chinese government over trade and tariffs. Is the Chinese business, meaning what they sell in China, going to remain a viable part of what Apple is?
If I look out over the next year or so, I expect the dynamics and the trade tension to continue. We've actually seen that for many years, but at the same time, Apple has been able to grow the China business over the last several years, and it's driven by the innovation, the products that Chinese customers love, and of course, a services business and the ecosystem there that, in my view, remains healthy. I do expect the trade tension, though, to be a factor at times, but ultimately it's going to be about the innovation, the execution on the product cycles. And if Apple is able to deliver value to Chinese customers, then I think that business there will remain healthy over the next 1 to 2 years. The Chinese economies, of course, had some challenges, but I think through that, Apple has invested in the country and I think still has a bright future there if I look out over the next couple of years.
And of course, the flip side of that in terms of what they sell in China is, of course, what they make in China and export overseas. Is there any sort of risk, particularly with what we presume is going to be a big announcement this fall of the next iPhones and other devices? Is there any concern here that people buying those devices, the end consumers, are going to see much higher price tags because of the tariffs?
The price of new devices has been going up over time as Apple and others in the industry infuse more and more silicon and intellectual property into the device. And so you have seen prices go up. Apple could choose to raise prices on some of its devices in the fall. The key, though, is that as a user, if you're able to trade in your older device, you're not going to pay full price. The other important thing is that there are a variety of payment plans. And so, again, from a monthly perspective, it helps with affordability. If I think, though, about the direction of travel here, this is about evolving the iPhone experience, more and more capabilities across payments, obviously video, camera, health. As that finds its way into the device, it becomes more valuable to the users. And what we've seen is that users are paying for the iPhone, the Pro and the Pro Max, because they value the additional capabilities. And I suspect we'll see that continue, even as prices may drift up a little bit to offset some of the higher costs, including tariffs.